Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand one thing. This isn't about romance. It's about survival. It's about what happens when you've been strong for too long, when you learn how to smile while falling apart, when you stop expecting anything, just so you won't be disappointed again. This is a story about the moment you don't think you're ready, but something real finds you anyway. And this is how it happened. I used to come to the park every morning while the city was still asleep, because this was the only place where I didn't have to hold myself together. Here I didn't have to smile. I didn't have to be convenient. I didn't have to pretend that it didn't hurt. In the silence between the trees, I listened to my own heart, and it was beating too loudly, as if reminding me, "You're still alive." The trees stood quiet. The benches were damp with morning dew, and the air felt cold and honest. I breathed it in deeply, as if I were afraid that one day I wouldn't be able to breathe at all. This was where I allowed myself to be weak, uncollected, imperfect. Just a human being, tired of being strong for too long. He entered my mornings quietly, and I didn't realize at first how deeply he was settling into my thoughts. At first, just a figure between the paths, someone unfamiliar, and yet, strangely, safe. For several days, we only nodded to each other, and I caught myself on a terrifying thought. I was waiting, and that scared me, because waiting means hoping again. Until one morning he stopped and asked me what time it was. I smiled, and there was more in that smile than I meant to show, because the watch was right there, on his wrist, and suddenly I felt something break inside me. It wasn't about time. It was about a chance. The conversation started simply, but inside me everything was trembling. I talked about a job that no longer inspired me, but what I was really thinking about was how long it had been since I woke up without joy. I spoke about dreams postponed for someday, and I was afraid that someday was no longer meant for me. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush. And in his silence, I wanted to cry, because for the first time, no one was trying to fix me. They were simply letting me be. We walked through the park, and I counted seconds so I wouldn't think about how good it felt to be next to him. I noticed how he slowed his pace, and my chest tightened. I wasn't being pulled. I wasn't being pushed. I was being waited for. And when someone waits for you, you can no longer hide. One evening, we stayed in the park until the sun went down. The sky felt warm, and the world suddenly grew very quiet. I said I was afraid to get attached again, because I remember what it's like to lose, what it's like to be left alone when someone promised to stay. The words caught in my throat, but I said them anyway. He was silent, and in that silence, I was already saying goodbye. Then he said, "I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise to stay." And I couldn't hold it in anymore. The tears came suddenly. Not pretty, not controlled, just real. Because someone didn't leave. Because someone stayed. Love didn't arrive like a miracle. It arrived like permission to believe again. Like a trembling step toward fear. Like a quiet hope I was afraid to name out loud. And in that moment, I understood. Even if it hurts again, I don't want to live without feeling anything anymore.